experience. Let's listen to their feelings. Also, in New York, we are truly indoctrinated to believe that the rest of the country hates immigrants, hates minorities, hates women. I remember growing up, like, while I was in college here, I never traveled across America. I was like, America sucks. I don't need to go to the South. They're going to hate me. They're going to be mean to me. It's going to be dangerous. Truly, that was the mentality that I was accustomed to living in New York City. And you know what's so funny is that living in New York City, you think that you're like going to be an outcast when you go to any other state in the country because you're pro abortion, pro women's rights, pro whatever, LGBTQ. But the reality is, if you're outcasted in the rest of the country, it's because you're going to those states with this mentality that all these people hate you. You're paranoid. You also make way more money than everyone else in the country. And you are, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I realized that also when my mom, my stepdad moved down to Florida, and I started going to Florida a lot more. I started going to other places in the US, and I realized nobody's treating me any differently. In fact, they care less. And I just think that it's really terrible. It's toxic how in New York City and probably in LA and San Francisco as well, we are truly indoctrinated to believe that everyone is out to get us. Like, we're truly breeding paranoia.
This is absolutely crazy. What is going on in New York, in LA, in San Francisco? People are completely brainwashed by the left, and truly, this is eye-opening to watch. And see, what a great video right there. This lady is leaving the left, and for good. Let's watch.
I kind of left college just feeling the same way. You know, I didn't think that much of it. Really, the major shift in my thinking started around COVID, and I think that's probably a case for a lot of people. So I was living here in New York City throughout COVID, and it was a mess, right? And I had a group of friends from college. Almost all of them are super, super liberal. Some of them are self-proclaimed socialists. And I have mentioned some of them in past videos and how they actually harbor like clear racist tendencies. But that's besides the point. I had this group of friends, and, you know, every group of friends has different dynamics, and there's different relationships amongst individuals in those groups. And I had a friend that was kind of like on the outskirts of this group that I was closest with, and maybe they weren't as close with the rest of the group. And one of our other friends was getting engaged during COVID. And so we had decided, okay, we're going to have a small engagement party for them. And they requested that all of us just get, you know, a test before we come to show that we don't have COVID. Fine. So we all got a test. And then on the day of this party, my friend on the outskirts of the group waited in line for like 4 or 5 hours outside in the freezing cold, because this was in December of 2020, to get this test. And she finally got the test, texted the group and said like, hey, I got it. It's negative. What's the address? When she sent that message, I was already at the apartment with all these people, and they all looked at each other and they were like, okay, so-and-so got her test and it's negative, but I feel like she shouldn't come anyways because I saw that she was out with other people earlier this week. So like, we don't really know if her test matters. I think I just needed something so glaringly hypocritical to snap something inside of me. And that was definitely the thing that really woke me up. where I realized that this was nothing to do with COVID. And in fact, they were just using this fear, this quote unquote fear of COVID, to manipulate who they surrounded themselves with. They didn't want this person to come, and so they were changing their minds on what the rules were for getting in. And this person had stood outside for 5 hours in the freezing cold. So I made a scene and I left. I was like, I'm not going to associate with this sort of behavior.
Good for you, honestly, to realize how crazy these leftists are. This is completely insane. People have been using COVID to manipulate people for years now, and it is sad that it has gone way, way, way too far for way, way, way too long. I'm glad that you are finally leaving the left and coming to the right side.
I'm going to go meet up with that person because that's the right thing to do. Whatever. When all of the dust settled there, I was having conversations with these people, and the more and more that we talked about it, I just started to realize that the way that they were thinking about COVID was extremely short-minded. So a lot of the conversations were about, oh, well, we need to save as many people as we can right now because people are dying. But they just did not acknowledge any long-term effects that we could know at the time would occur from closing down the global economy. And I, at the time, I wasn't even the most well-versed in international policy, in American policy, but I knew that if you close down the economy, we are going to see extreme levels of unemployment, which can be easily tied to lower life expectancies, etc. But they would just never talk about this. And I thought this was really strange because we were all working from home, and so we all had jobs. But then the people that live in New York City that need to be on site for work were not able to work. And it was really easy to sit at home and say that you were saving lives when you were also still receiving a salary. So this is when I started to really branch away from the rest of the people I knew that were Democrats. I also just started reading things more critically and in an open-minded way. I think the main thing that I used to think of when I thought of progressive was open-mindedness. And I do think that originally that's really what that party stood for. But it became really clear that we were going through a shift where, in fact, to be a progressive, it was to not be open-minded to anything that anyone on the left might be wrong about. So that was the initial crack in the way I was viewing the left and the right.
You can tell that this lady is totally beautiful, totally smart for realizing how indoctrinated she was. And she's also very, very courageous to admit in front of everybody, in front of the camera, on the whole internet, that she is wrong. And she's coming out as a conservative basically right now. She has realized how crazy these leftists have become and that the Democrats are not helping the situation at all. I am so glad to see so much young people that are so courageous coming to the right side of history right now. It is beautiful to watch, absolutely amazing.
And I do remember the first time Trump got elected. I was so devastated. I wanted Hillary Clinton to win. I didn't really know why. I didn't have any good reason besides the fact that she'd be the first woman president. And, my mom worked for her campaign, and it would have been so great. And then who's this guy? I just thought of it as in terms of this person's good, this person's bad. Oh, I don't know. I didn't think of it that deeply, and yet I wanted to care about it. And I think that's what a lot of people want to do. They want to feel that they're involved and that they're well informed. And that means that they have to have an opinion, when sometimes the best thing to do is to not have an opinion if you're not ready to have one. So anyways, that was COVID, okay? And I feel like we were just sitting around and we, for me at least, I knew that the world was crumbling. I knew that things were going to be really bad coming out of COVID. And I felt like I was crazy. Like, how come no one around me is seeing this? How come no one around me is capable of thinking in a long-term vision? Like, if everything was just such instant gratification and everyone was ignoring the fact that this was going to really fuck things up. So that was really like the beginning of the end. Once I started to also realize that the people that I was surrounded with, or I was surrounded by, were people that couldn't hold an opinion on their own without it being validated by the rest of the group, that's when I really started to think like, these are some people that are really highly educated that I used to think were really smart. And being smart doesn't necessarily mean being brave. And that's kind of the distinction that I was making at the time. And I just decided, I am not like that. I'm brave. I think the same things that drew me to the left growing up with my dad and etc. also made me strong, resilient, and brave. So that actually kind of were the main qualities of like why I was able to start viewing things more objectively. And I also think with age, as you get older, you should be able to get to a place where you don't just act on emotion. You don't just think of feelings first.
Absolutely amazing. What a great video. What a great story. Honestly, you can see how brave and smart and intelligent and courageous and confident she has become as she got older and threw away from these radical leftists that have been indoctrinating her entire life. I am so glad to see that. I hope more people like this realize how crazy the left has gotten over the past few years and decades, if you ask me. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you go check her out. Links in the description below and click right there to watch the next one. Bye bye.